Everybody, how you doing? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from the Black Business School, and I was reading the news today, and I saw that there's a high school in Brooklyn, Brooklyn Tech, that is where the black students are actually taking a stand against some of the racism in the school. They're actually using the hashtag Black in Brooklyn Tech. One word, which you can look up on Twitter and Facebook and whatnot, where they're talking about their experiences with racism, microaggressions, all this kind of stuff. It's interesting. It's an interesting story. Basically, the students feel at this school, which they said is 59% Asian and 8% black. That's an interesting school. 59% Asian. And we know that the Asian community kind of has a reputation for kind of being ahead of the curve educationally, which some of that stereotype is true on average, on an individual basis, but on average, the Asian community tends to have a certain value system when it comes to education. The African American community, actually, we've got big pockets of our community that have embraced education. And as we work further and further each day, you see more and more people gravitating in that direction. And where you are doesn't matter as much as where you're trying to go. And I do believe that it is now smart to be cool, or excuse me, cool to be smart. That's what I meant. Sorry, but you get the point. The point is that we had a long time where white media was pretty much perpetuating and pushing forward ignorance in the black community, encouraging young black men and young black women to embrace just ultimate amounts of stupidity, anti-intellectualism, etc. And while that's still out there, the media still has an effect on a lot of our young people. There are a lot more young people I'm seeing who will come to me and they say, "I want to learn from you." When I go on the Breakfast Club, I get a lot of emails from a lot of young people who say, "How can I learn from you? What can I do to get to where I want to get to in life?" And so don't believe for one second that black people don't want to learn, that we don't want to get ahead, that we aren't as capable as anybody else, because that's just not true. We're as capable as anybody. We're persecuted more than everybody. Now, so with this school, these kids, I love what the kids are doing. And I like it because I love the idea of young black people feeling that they can control their environment, control their destiny. Now, me personally, I'm a big fan of doing things like that, like Nomalanga Mushali Moses teaches, which is basically educating your own kids. She's at her website is theblackhomeschoolguide.com, and what I love about her platform is that she teaches parents how to make sure that you are in charge of your child's education, so that not only do you make sure they learn the right facts, but they're also, how can I say this, being loved in the right way. A lot of our children go to these schools and they just get the worst kind of crazy treatment and worst kinds of miseducation and worst kinds of abuse that you can imagine. But we keep sending our kids to these schools, right? Because we want them to get a good education, right? We think that being around white people or Asian people will make them better, right? When in fact it only makes them worse. I don't know about this school. I don't know if my child would be going to a school where they're being mistreated this way, but it looks like Brooklyn Tech, it appears to be a decent school. So a lot of people put their kids out there. And so I guess if you're going to have your child tolerate that kind of abuse, at least teach them to fight back against it, right? Even though it's very, very stressful. Fighting racism every day. There are studies that show that fighting racism every day has a huge impact on your health, your mental health, even your physical health. Things like heart disease, stress, diabetes, all these things come from the stress of constantly fighting racism every day. A lot of black people are hit by that. And so I will just tell you, if you want to get away from racism, if you really want to really minimize the stress of racism, do a couple of things. Number one, educate your own damn kids if you can. Number two, find a way to make your own money. That means learn entrepreneurship. Every black child in America should learn how to start their own business. It doesn't mean that they have to be an entrepreneur, but they should have that as a plan B, just in case white folks decide they don't want to include them in their economic system, right? And so with education, I think that it's unfortunate we have to fight these battles. I wish there were more black institutions out there that could really do what's best for our kids. I think that we could have more. I think we have to be more creative, because the only thing that we really know how to do to develop our own institutions is to go ask white people to give us money to do that, and that just doesn't usually work. And when it does, it turns into something that we never planned for it to be. Anyway, with Brooklyn Tech, I love seeing these kids fight back. I think it's great that they're taking a stand. I think it's better. That's so much better than just tolerating the abuse. You have this tradition where black people are encouraged to be peaceful and quiet and rewarded, really rewarded for very meek, just really meek punk ass behavior. Excuse my French. I mean, I'm talking about where you have situations where people will get awards for being peaceful, even though somebody's beating you upside the head every day or somebody's abusing the hell out of you. You get rewarded for being peaceful, and that's basically somebody saying, "Okay, please put your gun down because we're gonna pick our gun up." So effectively, you're being rewarded for being stupid. It doesn't mean that being peaceful always means you're being dumb. Well, sometimes you can't be peaceful anymore, especially when you're dealing with very barbaric behavior, and racism can be very barbaric, very just so disgusting to have to kind of deal with, to have to look at. But you have to also understand that white supremacy, for the most part, or in this case, I guess it might be Asian supremacy, since a lot of the students are Asian. But this supremacy thing is kind of a two-way street. Black people, on one hand, we are the victims of that abuse, but we also subject ourselves to more abuse than anybody else. We have situations where we could choose a little more independence in education, economics, etc., but we don't choose that. We keep going back to our oppressor. We go back to our abuser because we got this weird Stockholm syndrome thing going on, or something, where we just sort of feel like that, like we don't want to have our own. We want to beg you to treat us fairly in your institutions. So I'm not saying these kids shouldn't be in this school, but I am going to say that when I was a kid, my mother sent me to this school called Kentucky Country Day in Louisville, Kentucky, where I'm from. And it was this really exclusive school, very good education, lots of rich kids, lots of white kids. I was the only black kid in my class. I'm talking about the whole sixth grade, whole seventh grade, whatever it was. And she ended up taking me out. And the reason she took me out was because even though I was getting a lot of educational advantages, the psychological abuse was just so horrendous that it was really disrupting my self-esteem. It was very difficult. I didn't feel like a normal person. I felt inferior in so many ways. Every single day I went to school, I was being treated like a second-class citizen, and it was horrible. I mean, it was horrible. And so at that time, when I look back on that, I think to myself, you know what? At that point in my life, education didn't matter nearly as much as love. Because love breeds self-esteem. It breeds happiness. And when you have self-esteem, when you have happiness, someone doesn't always have to just give you education. You want to pursue it. School becomes fun at that point because you're enjoying yourself. You feel embraced. You feel loved. But when you're going to school and you feel like you're walking into enemy territory, that's a lot for a 12-year-old, 13, 14, 15-year-old to deal with. So let's try to find ways for our kids to not feel like they have to go into enemy territory and just fight battles. You shouldn't have to fight your whole life. I'll tell you, when I stopped working for white people and stopped learning from white people, I was able to stop fighting with white people all the time. I fight on behalf of other black people, but in my day-to-day life, in terms of what I do on a day-to-day basis, I don't have to deal with white people unless I want to. I am my own boss. I kind of make my own decisions, and it's not like it was rocket science to accomplish this. It was a matter of just making sure I had the courage to go for it. A lot of us are just scared. A lot of us are scared. We literally are like the abused spouse who says, "Oh my God, what am I going to do without my wife or without my husband? What am I if my partner leaves me? As bad as they are, I'll have nothing. I'll be nothing." Right? You gotta let that go. You gotta let that go. It's all about courage. It's all about the spirit. It's all about love. But love, meaning showing love for our kids, making sure that they're always loved, and ultimately loving ourselves. Because if we don't love ourselves, then we're not going to value ourselves. And when you don't value yourself, you're not going to invest in yourself in the right way. When you don't love something, you don't value it. You don't invest in it. You just, if you have a trophy or something and you don't value the trophy, you're going to throw it in the corner. It's going to gather dust. But if you value the trophy, you're going to shine it up, put it on the mantle. You're going to make sure nobody touches it, right? Well, the same thing is true with each other and with ourselves. If we love and value ourselves, we'll treat ourselves with that dignity, and we'll command that other people treat us with that same dignity. And to some extent, I see a little bit of that with these kids kind of standing up and saying, we're not going to tolerate this kind of abuse. God bless them for that. But that's not the best solution. That's not the optimal solution. The optimal solution really is for black children to be in environments where they're with other black people who love them. And with that love, when you connect, then you can correct, you can build, you can get kids to grow. I can tell you this, and it's the last thing I'll say, then I'm done. I was a terrible student in school. I mean, worst of the worst. would get the I'd be the one that got the lowest score on most of the tests, stuff like that. Every now and then I showed sparks of intelligence. I'd study hard for a test and get the highest grade in the whole class, but those will be aberrations. Most of the time I was one of the worst kids in the students in the class. And I can tell you this, a lot of the reason I was the worst kid in school, it had nothing to do with intellect, obviously, because I'm a professor, so I guess I must be kind of smart. I don't know. But it had more to do with not feeling loved, feeling like I was in a hostile environment, feeling the stress of dealing with the racism every day, feeling like I'm learning from somebody who didn't care about me. I'm learning some stuff I didn't want to really learn. I'm learning about a bunch of damn white people, and crap that really didn't matter to me as a black man. So every day I'm also being fed white supremacy, which is showing me that the 50 most accomplished people in history in this field were all white. Well, what does that say to me? That tells me your black ass isn't meant to do anything other than sweep the floor. If I can tell you this, if I had somebody that loved me, maybe somebody who looked like me, maybe who was somebody who understood me, teaching me every day, I would have shown my ability at a very early age. I would have not just been a good student, an adequate student, I would have been the greatest student ever. Because once I gained that self-esteem and that self-love, I did. I went to college and I blew it out the water. I was the best college student, probably one of the best they'd ever had, and still to this day. I did the stuff I did in college was pretty remarkable, and that all came out because it wasn't an intellectual process that built that. It was an emotional process. I just started to feel better about me and better about life and more hopeful and optimistic and more in control and more empowered, etc. That's what sort of bred this high achievement. It wasn't just an intellectual thing, because the intellect was always there. So let's be careful about putting our kids in hostile environments where they got to fight their whole lives. You shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to spend your whole life fighting for acceptance. Only battle for acceptance you should fight is the one inside of you. Once you win that battle, to hell with everybody else. All right. Well, good luck to the kids at Brooklyn Tech. Keep doing your thing. I'm going to follow this, and hopefully I can provide some support. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from the Black Business School and the Black Wealth Bootcamp. Until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. I am gone. Peace.